After I completed my remarks to kick off the campaign to ensure our next 50 years, it was suggested to me that I record these remarks in a YouTube video for those who could not attend the service. What follows is a reprise of those remarks. In 1991, my wife and I were married by a rabbi and a minister out on Long Island, as many interfaith couples are. At that time, I belonged to a conservative temple in Ocean County. Even though I was only 22 at the time, the thought of not joining a temple never crossed my mind. For those of you now calculating in your heads how old I am, I'll save you the trouble. I'm 43. Belonging to a temple was just something I needed to do. No one told me to or said I needed to. I didn't even have any pressure from my parents about it. It was one of the few things they didn't pressure me about. But that was what I was to do. I didn't have a lot of money and had debt, but still, belonging to a temple was important to me. Note that I said I belonged to a conservative temple. It was indeed just me. The conservative temple would not recognize my wife as a member, even though we both attended services together. This was fine enough for us. I only had to pay single young member dues, until about 1993. In 1993, something changed. My wife was pregnant, and the pregnancy had moved far enough along that we needed to start thinking about some important things. The first thing that we agreed is our children would be raised as Jews. Then, we needed a place to have our child named if it was a girl. We spoke to the temple that I belonged to, and they informed me, very nicely I might add, that for my daughter to be named in the temple, she would first have to be converted to Judaism, because traditional Judaism believes in maternal lineage only, and that when we had the naming, my wife, who was Methodist at the time, could not participate in the ceremony. So, that sent us on a search. We talked to at least one other conservative temple and two Reform temples, Temple Shalom and Monmouth Reform, and joined Temple Shalom for two reasons. First, Monmouth Reform had a fair shares dues program with no adjustment factor for young members, so my dues for Temple Shalom as a then 25-year-old would be far less, about $150 a year as I recall. And besides, I couldn't sing with the cantor at Monmouth Reform. She was this high soprano and always sang in these keys where there was never a comfortable octave for me to sing with her. So, in 1994, shortly before my daughter was born, we joined Temple Shalom. The intention was for this just to be a temple. We came to services and that was about it. A couple years later, we heard about two wonderful programs that Sister had put on called Cradle Roll and Tot Shabbat. Initially, Tot Shabbat was led by Sisterhood members, but a couple of years later, it was led by Rabbi and Cantor. It was in those programs that Casey met friends like Rachel Enoch, who she is friends with to this day, and we met Rachel's parents, Gary and Debbie, and became friends with them. A couple of years after that, Scott Goldstein called me and said the temple was forming a softball team, and he heard that I had played softball. He wondered if I would join the softball team. There was one condition. In order to play softball, I needed to join the Brotherhood. Now, at that time, I really knew nothing about Brotherhood. Now, who knew at that time I'd go on to become Brotherhood president a mere 7 years later. The team never got off the ground that year. It did the following year. But I then started to attend Brotherhood programs. I was invited to join the Brotherhood board with the sole requirement being that I had a pulse and be willing to help. And again, I made another group of friends. Not long after, I was asked to join the Board of Education, and the cantor was seeking out folks to join the choir, so I joined the choir. Each time I got involved, and I kept getting more and more involved, I discovered I was making more and more friends. When I had my 30th birthday party, almost no one from the temple attended. But when it was time for my 40th birthday party, there was no doubt it would be filled with temple friends. In fact, given that Samantha Mallinger's birthday and mine are so close together, she frequently reminds me that I am indeed 6 days older than she is. We had a joint birthday party. It was one of countless celebrations and events that I have shared with my temple family. When I walk into the temple, it is like coming to a second home for me. It has really become so much more than the reason I joined, for me. Huey Lewis wrote a song called Stuck With You. In it, he says, we have all the same friends, and in fact, it is true with Temple Shalom. This is where my friends are, and so I, too, am happy to be stuck with Temple Shalom. Now, as I started to get involved, I also became involved with the Board of Trustees. I first joined the board about 9 years ago, then as the chairman of the Board of Education. During my tenure as the Board of Education Chair, I was asked by then President Sharon Steinhorn to join a committee to do what was the first of what became a series of significant budget and position cuts over a several-year period of time. Let's face it, our temple is not the 500-plus family congregation it was when I joined, where children under 3rd grade were not allowed in high holiday services due to lack of seating, and where you couldn't always get a seat if you were late for services on the high holidays. We are a much smaller congregation, just north of 300 families. Now, I need to pause and take a moment and commend the leaders of this temple for all the years I have been on the board. They have had to make difficult, heart-wrenching decisions. They have had to make painful cuts that kept them awake at night and sent many of them to bed in tears as they agonized over what had to be done. But they did what they needed to keep us moving forward, and were it not for their courageous decisions, we might not be here today. There is a long-range planning committee that is being led by Diane Allen, which will look at financial forecasts moving forward and see what our financial future holds and how we need to react to those things. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. What I'm here to talk to you about tonight is something different. I am kicking off tonight an initiative to ensure our next 50 years. Let me first explain the title. For those of you who don't know, in May 2013, Temple Shalom will celebrate its 50th anniversary. The objective of this task force is to ensure our temple thrives for the next 50 years. You see, for too long, all we've been able to do is cut. For too long, we've seen dwindling membership and associated revenue declines and have been unable to contain it in any meaningful way. It is time to reverse that trend. It is time to make Temple Shalom into the community that we want it to be. This is what that initiative is about. Now, there are naysayers, and to be blunt, I see their point, who say demographics are against us. Jews are not moving to this area, they say. Jews are not affiliating, they say. But I say this. Who are the Jews that Temple Shalom will appeal to? It is the Jews whose practices are less formal, the Jews who are in interfaith families, the Jews possibly with alternative lifestyles. Here's the beauty of it. We are perfectly placed for those Jews. If a Jew is very interested in a more traditional Jewish lifestyle, they will move to a community near the other Jews. If a Jew is of a less traditional lifestyle, being where all the other Jews are may not be as critical. That's the beauty of where we are. The beauty of where we are is we bring Jews from all over to Temple Shalom, from Sayreville to Shrewsbury, from Manalapan to Monroe to Middletown to Matawan, and yes, even from Marlborough. Jews come from far and wide to come to Temple Shalom. We have so much to offer. We are open to everyone. We welcome all to our family. We are a warm, caring community. We have wonderful clergy who are not tied to the way we've always done things, but are willing to experiment and try new things. Now, this will not be easy. We are in a different world. Some of you may not know what I do for a living. I'm in information technology, IT. That means I'm one of those guys who makes your life wonderful with all this new technology and miserable with all this new technology that doesn't work for you. We live in a world driven by IT advances. This is a world where religious services can be obtained online, where folks don't ever have to leave their home. But think about this for a moment. Isn't that exactly the world that needs a community like Temple Shalom? In my day job, if I so chose, I could go weeks or months without ever seeing another human being outside my house. I could sit at home with my computer and a phone and just work in solitude. But here's the thing. Whether we know it or not, we need community. We need people to reach out to us when we are mentally or physically hurting. We need people to celebrate our mitzvahs with, and we need to be able to be with other people and be able to give them hugs of joy or comfort. You can't do that over the phone, and you can't do that via email. Now, if you think I have all the answers as to how we're going to do this, I don't. But here's what I'm going to do with my team who joins me on this task force. We are going to conduct focus groups and find out what people want out of Temple Shalom. We are going to talk to people of all ages and backgrounds. We are going to figure out what they want out of Temple Shalom and how we can give it to them. We are going to figure out how we can build the sense of community that brought me in and brought me to the place where the vast majority of my friends are right here at Temple Shalom. Temple Shalom needs to be, to quote our new URJ President Rick Jacobs, about people and not programs. People will not join and stay at Temple Shalom because we put on some programs. People will stay at Temple Shalom because of the relationships they formed. We need to strengthen our community. As I said, I joined this community 18 years ago. At the time, the temple had been here over 30 years. I did not build this temple, and when the group of folks who decided to start Temple Shalom began, they certainly didn't know it would become my second home. Heck, my parents weren't even married when Temple Shalom was founded. I don't know who is going to benefit from Temple Shalom in 30 years from now. They may not be born yet, but this initiative is intended to make sure we are there for them when they need us. I have asked Pam and my choir mates to join me in singing Ani Ve'ata in a minute here. The lyrics of this wonderful piece of music, written by Eric Einstein, are so appropriate. Ani Ve'ata nishane et ha'olam. You and I, together, we will change the world. I am looking for folks willing to partner with me in this initiative. I need your ideas, I need your input, and if you are able, I need your participation. If you are interested, drop me an email, evp@templeshalomnj.org. I look forward to your assistance in this critical initiative.